Residents of Nkomazi in Mpumalanga are gripped by fear as their area is expected to experience heavy rains and flooding due to tropical depression Eloise, which has already made landfall in Mozambique. The Nkomazi area is prone to flooding, and residents say their houses have been damaged in the recent past by storms and heavy rains. Newzroom Afrika's Mweli Masilela spoke to the community members who pleaded with government to intervene if there is damage caused by the imminent storm.
Sesivile ukuthi kunesiphepho lesiqhamuka siphatheke kabi kakhulu ba ngoba thine lesinje sibantu besintu asikho emgangathweni tindlu tethu atikho ezingeni le right noma ngabe kungumoyanyana nje lomncane tindlu letiningi tiyaphuma tiyabaleka abantu bagcine basele basebaleni kungumanje vele sithuke kakhulu ngalendo leqhamuka siyeva noma sibuka lamafu siyabona ukuthi vele sekumihelo yokufika kwalendo. So siyakubona ukuthi vele sisenkingeni lenkulu kakhulu kwangathi uhulumende anganakakela lokuthi abohambela dudana abuke ukuthi sisafe ngakanani.
Uma ngabe sesiva ukuthi kunesiphepho sithoka kakhulu ngoba nathi salahlekelwa kulokuningi before ngendaba ngo-2000 nyalo yebo ngendaba ngo-2000 bekude lesiphepho umoya bewungekho kodwa lamandi ngiwo asihluphe kakhulu amosa into eziningi manje nyalo uma ngabe siva ukuthi sekunenkinga futhi yesiphepho lesiqhamukako asisathu ukuthi sesidawubeleka ngoba noma sesibaleke sayentsabeni khona la sikhona khona noma lamandi angeke azafike kodwa lesiphepho sitawumosa lokuningi.
And staying with the story, we now speak to Mpumalanga COGTA spokesperson George Mthethwa. George, good evening, and thank you so much for your time. I'm sure you would have heard those residents that are panicking, saying that for them, this is not a settling time, and should they find themselves, with their homes, either roofs blown away, as we saw in some of the homes in Mozambique, they're then appealing to government to at least be able to assist them because there's nothing else that they can be able to do. I wonder then, what are the plans as, COGTA right now when it comes to, preparing for this possible disaster?
Well, Mabongiwe, thank you very much and good evening to you and the viewers, and thanks for having me. Well, let's first indicate that the plea by the residents and the community has not fallen on deaf ears. We want to assure our communities that we are a government that is caring, a government that is always on the ground and will always pay attention to the pleas of their cries. Now, coming to your question as to what is it that we are going to do in terms of our plans, we must indicate that we have had a marathon of meetings, Mambongiwe and the viewers. And in those meetings, we have actually been putting a very strong case of our plans that will respond actually to the challenges that might be brought forth by the storm. Now, we must indicate that from the side of the department, we have put together, in fact, we have a storage or a stockpile, if you will, of what we call tarpaulins that is normally used for temporary shelter. We also have a stockpile of sponges that are also rolled out to distress the families in cases such as this. We also have what we call gel stoves that are also provided to distress families so that they can actually try to do some cooking until the situation returns to normality. But remember, Mambongiwe, that the issue of disaster such as this one is not only a one department responsibility. We've got sector departments that play a key role in this regard. We also have, for example, very handy at the time when our people are in distress. They will roll out food parcels, they'll roll out blankets. And we must indicate that in the marathon of meetings that we have had commitment from the department that all this relief material will actually be provided. We must also indicate, Mambongiwe, and we're very much inspired by the level of commitment that has also been demonstrated by agencies such as the Working on Fire, the the Red Cross. In fact, the Red Cross has even activated their systems to provide a number of volunteers who will then be dispatched to areas that will be engulfed with the heavy downpours. With regard to the working on fire, they have actually set aside a helicopter that will also be dispatched to areas where drowning cases occur. So all these collaborative efforts, they talk to the plans that we have put together so that we can cushion and ameliorate our communities so that we can save lives as much as we can. Well, I haven't spoken much about the municipalities. I may as well just hasten to say that municipalities have got the transport, the transport means actually to
that line there, not really great, as George is taking us through, some of the plans that have been put in place to assist, some of those that might possibly find themselves being affected by this tropical depression. As we try to see if we can establish or reconnect with George. I do understand that he is back now. George, you were still telling us about transport that has been organized by municipalities for evacuation.
Oh, certainly. My apologies about that. Actually, we're saying municipalities, they are strategically placed to provide transport. And in fact, we can confirm that our municipalities have actually put together a very strong dispatched to those low-lying areas, particularly in those communities that are residing in close proximity with the rivers and the dams, so that they can evacuate communities that are in distress.
And let's then look at, these marathon of meetings, and you say that they had different stakeholders. Did you then perhaps maybe meet with some of the forecasters, maybe either from the weather service, to also just prepare, the different municipalities for what exactly is to come? And if you were able to speak to some of those that can tell you what to expect, what are they telling you, at a practical level is likely to happen?
Well, your question is quite spot on, Mambongiwe. We must indicate that actually the South African Weather Service also forms part and parcel of our joint operation committee meetings in the marathon of meetings that I've alluded to. Well, the indication that we have, because the situation keeps changing from time to time. You recall that at first, they were actually given a prediction that says the storm or the heavy downpours, once it hits the identified provinces, the identified municipalities, such as Nkomazi municipality. I see you're talking to my colleague, Mr. Cyril Rupinga there. In fact, the prediction was such that by 12 o'clock midnight, that's when we're going to have a heavy downpours. But of course, as the situation changes, we now know that later on, the prediction shifted towards 5 o'clock or 1700 hours this afternoon. And I must say that driving to Nkomazi today, I actually experienced some heavy rains, especially in Malelane and Komati Port, which is close to Mozambique. But of course, we keep monitoring the situation, the weather patterns. It may change, it might come not as strong as it was predicted. But of course, our premise is that we must always be on high alert without taking any chances.
And certainly, and I wonder then what plans have been put in place by Eskom, because power might be cut off?
Well, I may not be speaking on behalf of Eskom, but we can say that Eskom and other sector departments and agencies that play a key role also in the economy do form part of this marathon of meetings, our JOC meetings. And of course, they've given us the high level of commitment that wherever there is going to be electricity or power cut, they have actually put a task team that will actually be attending to that. And of course, we can actually have a sense of comfort given that they have a high level of capacity to attend to such emergency cases. And not only Eskom, but of course, the business as well, obviously will be edgy once you start talking about Eskom, but we must actually have a sense of comfort that there are emergency, or let me say contingency plans that have been put in place to respond. But very much important, Mambongiwe, to also caution our communities that even if there's a trip of an electricity, but all electrical appliances must always be treated as a live wire, because that's where we also have a challenge wherein you have people who will then tamper with the electricity grid. And in the process, you find that we experience a loss of life. So we hope that our communities are going to be cautious whenever they are dealing also with the power lines as well during this period.
All right. Thank you so much, George, for your time tonight. We certainly do appreciate it, and all the best with the efforts that have been put in place to try and ensure that you mitigate the devastation for those communities. That was Mpumalanga COGTA spokesperson George Mthethwa.